Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today on the podcast, I am interviewing Adelina. She is incredible. If you listen to one podcast interview from all of them, please listen to this one. All right. It was incredible for me, and I know it will be incredible for you. Adelina is the founder of Surrendered Healing. She specializes in serving women of color who question their inherent deservingness and helps them trust their higher selves to create the abundant businesses and lives they truly deserve. And that description of her just downplays her gifts so much. Adelina comes on and shares really her story. She has intuitive gifts that have been passed down in her family for generations. She has spent more than half of her life learning from her ancestors and God about how to connect to those who have passed, those who are alive and in pain, and most importantly, our own inner knowing. She shares her own journey growing up, being scared of these gifts, not wanting to share them, growing up in a household of domestic violence, going through a relationship which included infidelity, and how she was able to love that person through it, come out the other side, and continue to grow into the amazing person she is today. This truly was a wonderful interview to do. She is a very inspiring person. I cannot wait for you to meet her. Jump on in. My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the podcast. Today on Self-Love Ignited, I'm interviewing Adelina. And this conversation has been a long time in the making. We first connected months ago, and then life happened. But anyway, we are finally here today, finally getting ready to have this conversation. Adelina, welcome to the podcast. Welcome, welcome. Please take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody, if you would.
For sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, it has been a long time in the making. So glad that first impressions last a long time, because we still came in and it just feels like no time has passed. So my name is Adelina Tancioco. I'm a spiritual life coach and business consultant. And I'm here in the Bay Area, California. I'm a mother of a two-nager, what I call her. I love her to death. She has my energy and opinionated energy as well. I'm also a happily married, and I've been working, we'll probably get to this, but I've been working on really embracing my identity as a wife, because that has been a long process for me on healing. And so I share that. And it's probably the first time I've ever introduced myself as a wife ever.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. But really, really grateful to be doing this work full time as a spiritual life coach and spiritual business consultant, especially specializing in working with women of color. And so love doing that. Really love supporting folks in, moving past the fears, moving past the imposter syndrome, and going into lives that they absolutely love, creating businesses that are really in alignment for them, feeling like they don't have to cut their arms and legs off to fit into mainstream society, and instead being able to utilize all of their gifts.
Yeah, I love that. And that is one of the things that we will get to, because it is such a key part of your story, is you and your amazing gifts that you have been able to embrace, and that you now help others do the same in their own way. I just think that that's amazing. So I want to hear about you. I want your story, right? So this podcast is all about self-love, our relationships with ourselves, and telling the story of going from a place of struggle, of maybe not liking yourself, not loving yourself, not accepting yourself, to being where you are today, whether you call that self-love, self-acceptance, whatever, regardless of label. It's telling the story between then versus now. So Adelina, why don't you take us back to the beginning? Where did your struggles with yourself begin in life?
Yes. Oh, back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, there's so much there. I grew up in a family of domestic violence, and that was definitely a forming experience for me. One in terms of, like I said earlier, even being able to be in a loving relationship with a man, right? But also having enough love for myself to just like be in the world. And so, I mean, so many layers here, and many years of therapy and coaching have brought me to this point, and I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But I think I remember, oh goodness, I must have been like in third grade.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my friends, it was like three of us, two friends and myself. And one was like, oh, I'm going to marry a doctor. And another was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to marry a lawyer. And I was like, I'm going to be the doctor, or I'm going to be the lawyer
Yeah.
because I'm going to keep all the kids if we get a divorce. And this was like my way of thinking. And so what it did is I knew that I wanted to be strong, right? And as a child, for me, what that meant was this like extreme independence and not needing to lean on a man. And so I think for me, my story of self-love was really this journey of loving myself so that I could put some walls down, loving myself to the point that I could trust others because I trust myself, loving myself so that I could, just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think when we think of self-love, at least myself, for me, when I first learned the term, I didn't think of it as this like, oh, well, you love yourself so that you could be more open. Right. It's like, no, you love yourself so that you can be independent. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this already.
Yeah.
I'm this independent. I'm making sure I'm never independent of a man. I'm
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of it. But my journey was really this opening up experience,
Right.
being open to receive love as another way of loving on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's huge, especially, growing up, like you said, growing up in a family with domestic violence. Like, I'm sure you would have learned very young, being open is dangerous, right? You have to put those walls up. That is safety. That is how you survive. And trusting yourself enough to deal with whatever comes at you when those walls come down is massive. That is huge. Yeah. Yeah. So you said that, I mean, that was like such a short, succinct story, but like, is that an ongoing thing, that like trusting
I
yourself
mean,
to put the walls down?
did you hear that I just introduced myself as a wife for the first time? Yes, I mean, it's such an ongoing process of like, what does it look like for me? Like, just this past weekend, I was sitting with my husband, and we had gone out with some friends, and because I didn't have the modeling of a healthy relationship, right? I mean, I think that I know that I love my husband very much, but I almost feel like unless you're really inside our relationship, like hanging out with us weekly, you don't get to see that side of me. I'm a very like sarcastic person, and just like, just joking, talk a lot of mess. Like, I don't really hold his hand in public, or I'm not really like a person to show affection, but we were hanging out with other friends, and I was like, I could work on that. Like, to balance it out. Like, it's fine that I joke and tease, and, we could laugh with each other and make fun of each other and stuff. But I think it would be nice, especially for our daughter, for her to see. I mean, she gets to see everything, but for her to see that it's okay to show in public how much you love your partner.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, that it's Tuesdays. Like, I was just thinking about that a couple of days ago. Like, I'm like, okay, Adelina, how can I grow? And I wrote it down, something to talk to my therapist about, like, like to expand on, because it's a continual thing. It's one thing to open myself up to be in a loving relationship. It's another to open myself up to show others that I'm in this loving relationship.
Yeah. 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 How did this work start? Like, was it spurred when you met your now husband? Was that the thing that like started you having the awareness of taking the walls down? Or like, what was the thing that like started you on this journey?
The thing that started me on this journey,
There
there
might not be one.
No. There's several.
Okay.
I'm just trying to choose one. But the one that actually sticks out is my relationship prior to my relationship now. I was in a 6-year relationship, and at the time of my life, that was a long time. Like I was young, and I felt like 6 years was a long time, you know. We were engaged, and then a month before our wedding, I learned that he was cheating on me. And so here I was, I had been with him since college. Now we're out, adulting together. And I was like, oh my God, I'm opening my heart up, and I could see myself getting married, which was a big deal. Like I hadn't really seen myself getting married prior to this. And so here I am, excited and being engaged. And then he just proved that all men suck. You know, like even him, like I was like, oh my God, you're just like everyone else. Like I just like, it triggered this whole thing in me, you know. But what was so interesting about that experience, and then we called up the wedding, we broke up, like it was a whole ordeal. It was a 300-person wedding. Filipinos roll deep. Okay, the pre-COVID. And so there was so much about like, there's this term in like the Asian culture about like saving face. And so like there is no opportunity to save face. Like all 300 plus all their friends and family now know, you know what I mean, that I don't have my life together, like quote unquote, that I'm not as independent and on top of the world as I like to, pretend that I am, So it was like this, like it was like I couldn't help but be vulnerable. Like everyone saw. It felt like I was on stage and everyone saw. And I come from a small town too. So like legit, I had a friend of a friend be like, oh, I was at the club and so from middle school was like, hey, how's Adelina doing? I heard you at the end of an engagement. Like people knew it's this, small town thing. So I would say like that experience helped me realize how much it mattered to me, and how much my persona mattered to me, my reputation mattered to me, and how many walls I still had up. Because I actually even played with the idea of still going through with the wedding. I was like, we'll just get an annulment afterwards. Like, I don't know what to do. But I really thought about it, because the other thing about this 300-person wedding, it was a DIY wedding. So 100 of the guests or something were involved in the wedding, like from the florist to the violinist to the videographer, like people, they were like friends of friends, like helping out the band, like everyone was invested in this wedding too, because they were a part of it. So yes, that helped me realize like how much I'm still trying to put up a front, and then the other layer of this is that I realized that I had been praying to learn to love. Like that was like a legit prayer of mine. And I never would have thought that an experience like that would teach me how to love. But that is what it did. I felt like I in that experience learned that love is beyond conditions, and that even though I didn't want to marry him anymore, that I could still love him. And in fact, loving my ex through that was the most loving experience that I had encountered. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's absolutely amazing. That's amazing. And I think that last point that you just touched on right there, the fact that you were able to, you had been asking, I want to learn how to love, and you were given I would say one of the hardest situations, and you did it, right? You were able to love him through it, not marry him, change your mind about your future plans, but love him through it. Like that is massive. That is a huge deal. And that feels so, even just when you were saying that to me, that feels like that feels like was that really healing for you? Because it feels like when you were talking about it, like that was a really healing thing. Like that's a huge deal.
I remember I was in my apartment. I'm just laughing. So I did a bunch of self-love stuff. I did retail therapy for a while. I like moved into this expensive area, which I couldn't afford. I worked in education at the time as a social worker. So it was way beyond, but I was like, I just need to love myself and just worry about the bills later. But so here I was in this really nice apartment of mine. And I was laying there and I was crying. I cried every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was crying and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't carry this weight of this resentment,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I forgave him for him, but really I forgave him for me. Like I could not carry it. And I remember crying out to God and forgiving him and just being like, okay, I forgive you. I'm letting it go. I get it. Like we all have our humanness and
so
I'm going through this whole process and I felt this like warmth in my chest. This like, it was like so warm. And I felt this warmth spread from my essentially heart throughout the rest of my body, like down to my arms, down through my stomach, down my legs, through my feet. And it was just like, it was so visceral, this experience that after, and it was just, it's a split moment of an experience, right? But after that, I was like, oh my God, who else can I forgive? Like, I want to feel like this all the time. Like, who else can I, and it was such a healing, such a healing experience for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's amazing. The other thing that I want to ask you about, you haven't mentioned it yet, but we talked about it the first time that we connected. And
Yes.
I know that it's a really big part of your self-love story is you and your gifts and accepting your gifts and embracing your gifts. So can you tell us, in whatever way you're comfortable talking about it, can you tell us a little bit about your gifts? Just share that.
Sure. Yeah. So an intuitive ancestral gift has been passed down in my family to really connect, with ancestors. And thanks for asking, because it's actually 100% connected. Like it's like 100% connected to who I am, but also to my story of self-love. And so how that manifests for me is that like I can connect to those who have passed away. And then now it's expanded into, connecting to people who are still in their bodies, but in this very like empathetic, intuitive space. Yeah. I'm like, so I think when it comes to self-love, like my mom told me about this gift when I don't know, maybe I was like 5 or 6 when I first had an experience. And she just wanted to let me know, like, I'm not crazy. This is what's been passed down in our family. And it's okay. But then she also coupled it with, and don't tell anyone.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Good.
Like, don't tell. Yeah. And here I am on a podcast.
Right.
Sorry, Mom.
Love it.
But she's like, and don't tell anyone because they're going to lock you up in a crazy house.
Yeah.
Like, do not tell anyone. Okay. Like I said, we grew up in a small town-ish area though. And so, my close friends knew about it because I had messages for them. And so I remember like years later, like, you kind of find your people, and now the world has really shifted.
Yes.
Right. And I actually got a message from another healer back in like 2006 or 7, saying like more people are going to be, everyone's born with these gifts, but not everyone kind of utilizes them because of generations of colonization and genocide and, just horrible things that have made us disconnected from who we are.
Yep.
But every culture is indigenously connected to spirit in this way, or in their own ways. And so anyway, my friend was saying, but the world is shifting. And so more people are going to be connecting to their gifts, and it's going to be louder for them. They're going to be called to do this work. she was older than me, maybe by 10 or so years. And I looked up to her. And I was just like, no way. Like, no way. And I think back, here we are. And this is like so much more common for people to just be like, like spiritually connected and loving on themselves in this way. And when I say it's completely intimately connected to my experience of self-love, is fully embracing this side of me.
Yeah.
And that end of the engagement was a huge, catalyst for me in embracing that gift as well, where it was just like, I'm thinking back, and I like told off. This is so not like a positive thing to share, but it's okay. I like told off all my ancestors. I was like, I prayed and I listened, and you didn't protect me. How dare you?
Yeah.
And I was like, and I got so angry, and all my life I told them never to show themselves because I'm too scared. But I was like, you know what? F it. Show yourself right now. I want to see you because I am pissed that you didn't protect me. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm in my apartment, in my, fancy little apartment, and my sister's at my mom's house, which is like, the core of like, like our power, essentially our gifts. And my sister calls me and she's like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, the doorbell is ringing off the hook. And I was like, oh, whatever you do, don't answer it. And she goes, I already answered it. I already answered it. What are you doing? And I was like, I told all of our ancestors to show themselves. And she's like, well, don't send them here. So, but it was like this process of healing, one, to just kind of like come out and be like, yes, like I have ancestors. I trusted you and talk straight to them, but also to be like, and I'm still human, and you're going to do your best. In reflection, they had sent me so many warning signs. Like there were so many red flags that I wasn't listening to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so spirit, there's ancestors around us, and then there's spirit, like God, higher power, whatever you call that energy, I believe is like the, guiding you. And I feel like everyone, including God, was telling me, but I wasn't listening. But spirit talks to you the way you listen. So like me, having that conversation with him, and even me learning that he was cheating on me, it was a spiritual intervention. I had this random thought that was not my own. And it was just like, it had said something to the likes of like, we'll prepare to be without him. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm about to marry him in a month. Like, what do you mean prepare to be without him? And I was like, what the fuck, and so that night I asked him, I was like, is there something you're not telling me? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me. And it kind of freaked him out too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was a spiritual intervention that led that there. It was because the spirit told me, and I was finally listening.
Right. Yeah. You'd probably gotten so many hints by that time and you hadn't picked up on them. And finally it was like, we need to get this girl's attention. Like, we just need to be like super direct, right? To get you to take action, which is exactly what happened.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But it was so intimately connected to my gift, because other people had asked like, well, how did you find out? I'm like, well, God told me.
It's a hard conversation to have with a lot of people.
So, and they're like, and then he confirmed something. I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's how it went. Yeah. But I mean, but even, to kind of shift gears, but it's been so interesting to share with my mom now just how much I'm open about my gifts, because essentially the work that I do is also the work that I do is connected to the gifts. So I used to be a therapist, and then I, now do spiritual coaching. And it was important for me to be able to be my own company, essentially. So I didn't have this like board of behavioral health looking over me, because the work that I do is not culturally, like, because it's so culturally connected, it's not accepted in Western medicine, essentially.
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to her maybe just like a handful of years ago. I was in Michael's walking down the aisles and we were talking about a message I got, and she's like, Adelina, where are you right now? I was like, oh, I'm at Michael's. She goes, who is around you? Oh my God, Adelina, why are you talking to me about this in Michael's? What are you doing? And I was like, Mom, it's fine. The world is more accepting. It's okay.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Oh, bless her. Yeah. So like just so much fear there, right? Because the world used to be a very different place. Yeah. And like understandably.
I mean, and she has had people like, really look at her like she's this, dark energy or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. And like the world is changing, but I know there are still people out there who have that idea. But I think that the more we have these conversations and the more that people like you open up and you're like, this is me and this is what this is part of who I am, and this comes through my family, and it is a blessing, and it's like this tool to help people. Like I just think that is what's going to supercharge the change, and it's going to make it happen faster and faster and go bigger. So I just think that's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I used to really see it as almost like a coming out experience for me, to be like, oh, okay, but the more and more I practice it, the more it for me isn't as big and scary to share. But I'm also surrounding myself with people like you who you're excited to hear about it. And so I'm like, oh, are there still people who are not? Because the Spirit has just been so good in sending me the right people to talk to, but even then I'm asking, I shared this with you the first time that we chatted, I'm asking permission and guidance on who I share it with.
Yeah.
Right. And so it came up in our first conversation because your ancestors and my ancestors said that it was fine for me to share it with you, that it would, they not only would you take it well, but also it's a part of your journey, you know what I mean? To hear more of this work and in your own process. And so it's like like I don't know all the details because I didn't ask, but it was just like, yes, tell her, and I'm like, okay, I just trust that there's, a reason for that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm curious, for yourself on this journey. Now, do you identify with the term self-love? Is that what this feels like to you? Or is there some other term that feels more true to you in your lived experience?
I do identify with self-love. I see it kind of like as the beginning. You know what I mean? Like I think of it as like this, it's an essential foundation, but it reminds me of, and I say this with love, but I remember like, I used to work in education and there were these like standardized testing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And teachers would get so frustrated. I was, a dean of students, and then I was a counselor. So I was more on the admin side, and teachers would get really, really frustrated about standardized testing, which was a pain in the butt. I'm glad a lot of spaces have left having standardized testing because of they're based on discriminatory things anyway. But besides that, I mean, that's not the point. But the point is, so what I would help the teachers see was that if you don't teach to the test, you teach beyond the test. And the standardized testing, those questions are like foundational. The students should know those answers.
Yeah.
But don't teach to the test. Teach way beyond that, and then trust that they're going to be able to understand what these test questions are. Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I see self-love as that, like, yes to self-love. And let's like shoot for like, this like full, because when I hear self-love, and I used to teach a lot around like self-care. So it reminds me of self-care.
Yeah.
And self-care, yes to self-care. Goodness gracious, yes to self-care. Goodness gracious, yes to self-love. And live your best damn life. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to learn how to cope with my trauma. You know what I mean? It's like, no, let's like create a world that, with my daughter now, I sit with like, what would it look like for me? Because before it was like, what would it look like for me to raise like an independent girl? Like I was thinking God, honestly, that God gave me a girl. I'm like, oh, Lord, I don't know what to do with a boy yet. I'm not prepared on how to raise a boy to be loving to women and to be, you know what I mean? And so, but it was like, my mind was like, I want to, if I have a daughter, and I always imagined I would have a daughter, that she was like love herself, that she'd be independent, that she'd be, you know what I mean? And yes to all of that. And now it's like, how can I raise a daughter who's like healed, not like who knows how to heal from it? You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I see the self-love as like an important foundation.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm trying to aim for like raising healed children, like raising the generation where they don't, self-love is so much at the core
Yeah.
that it's almost not even named. It's
Yeah.
not even, it's like, it's a given. We don't even have to call it that, because that's just like a part of the everyday culture, to take care of ourselves, to love on ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
But I did actually use the term with my daughter yesterday. It was just yesterday. She was like screaming. She really wanted me to hold her, but I
Mhm.
wanted to finish eating. And I was like, I could hold her and eat, but I just needed some space,
Mhm.
you know? And so her dad was gonna, brush her teeth. It was like nighttime routine and everything. And she's like, but mommy, I want you to hold me. I want you to hold me. She was like so upset. And I was like, I hear you. I know you want me to hold you. But right now, I need some me time. Mommy's I'm taking care of myself right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like eating a watermelon. I'm taking care of myself right now, baby girl. And it was like, and I caught myself because I was like, it's important for me to tell her that that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
Not that I can't. I could pick her up. Not that I could rush myself and finish eating, or I could skip eating my little dessert watermelon anyway. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I could, but I'm like, no. I'm gonna take care of myself, and I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna tell you that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I hear that you're upset, and I'm still gonna take care of myself right now. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's like I want it to be for her this like given. I don't
I
know.
love that.
That was a very long-winded way of
No,
answering your question.
that was absolutely perfect. I love that. And you know what? You are the first person ever that I've spoken to on this podcast who has talked about self-love as being the bottom of the tier. Because so many people, and this just speaks to, it just speaks to that it's a journey, right? And everybody's at their own place and there is no right or wrong.
Yes.
But for so
Right.
many people, the self-love feels so out of reach. It feels so huge that they're like, I can't even imagine that. So I'm at like self-acceptance. I'm at neutrality. I'm at just not hating myself today. And I love, and it speaks to, I think, how much work you have done on yourself and how
I was like, a lot of years of therapy and coaching.
I know, right? But like, it speaks to that, like it speaks to your journey, but also your outlook on the world, that's just baseline. Like, that is just like, of course we have that. Of course your daughter's going to grow up with that. Of course it's just a given. It's not something that's up for debate. It's not something that anybody else gets to have a say in. It's like, yes, we all have that because we all deserve it. And it means that we get to grow into so much more when that is at the core of each of us. Right. Oh,
Right.
I love it. I have like goosebumps. Yes. I love that. That makes me so happy.
Yes. Well, and just to say, it's it's work. I'm sharing with you my ideal, but it's work for that. But in my mind, I'm like, that's where it needs to be. That's what the future is. Let's get there. You know what I mean? But
totally. Since you've been on this journey of self-love, it's like self-love plus. That's what I see, like self-love and.
Yes.
But since you've sort of really intentionally like been on this journey, embraced this, seen that the walls needed to come down, see that there were gifts of yours that you needed to sort of, take on and take pride in, how has your mental health, how has your emotional health, how has your spiritual health changed? How has it transformed that part of your life, embracing yourself?
It's funny because, now I do this healing work. I actually just this past couple of days ago on Sunday, I did like opening prayer at a wedding. I've officiated a few weddings. Like, this is kind of like, I'm giving you just like a sense of like who I am now, right? This like healer energy, all that. And I remember like back in 2012 when I heard this calling to do this work in this way. That I remember getting that call and I just started crying. And I was telling my then partner, the one who we ended up getting engaged and breaking up,
Yeah.
my then partner, that the initiation process was going to be a pain in the ass. I was like, oh my God, why would spirit call me out of all people
Yeah.
to be a healer? Like, I just felt like my personality type, and, so friends who've known me for years, they kind of laugh because who I am now, and I'm grateful to be here, having done a lot of work and, all that.
Mm.
And I have a lot more work to do. Goodness gracious, God knows I have a lot more work to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I share this because it's in juxtaposition to my personality before, where it was like Miss Independent. I was like, my dream was to be a boss lady. Like, I would be walking and people would be like, Adelina, you have a phone call on line one. And I'm like, I'm sorry, reschedule that. Da-da-da. Like completely in my ego.
Okay.
Like, that was my dream in high school, was like, I was be like, like really on top of the world in that way, and just completely ego driven in that sense, and so my journey of self-love, and it's a continual journey, and I have, like I said, so much more to go,
Mm-hmm.
but it has opened me more and more up to letting go of my ego, that like my plans don't have anything on spirit's plans. You know what I mean? And in that whole idea of, the Buddhists talk about like attachment being the cause of all suffering, right? And how much I can be and still am in a lot of ways attached, And so like every day is this journey of releasing the attachment to love, so that I can love myself.
Right. Yeah.
We in my family, we talk about this. Rest in peace, Lula. Lula is what we call my grandma, but we say that she has this like the Lula gene. And we kind of joke about it, but as I've done more work, I'm like, oh, it's like a real like trauma that's been passed down in my family. And so essentially the Lula gene, rest in peace, is like, take no shit. Hell no, I'm never gonna do this. Sorry, I've been cursing a lot on your podcast.
It is fine. It is fine. Bring it on.
Okay. I should have asked you beforehand. I have a potty mouth. But like my Lula, she gave up a lot to be here, which a lot of immigrants do. But she was just one, like, you just never, like, she would remember something that you did to her 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And she did not forgive you. And she's your elder. So she's just like, if, in the family, like, you gotta respect her all the way, no matter what she said to you. And it had to be this way or the highway. She would leave the house if she was angry. Like, it was just like very very strong,
yes,
opinionated matriarch. Right. And I'm so glad that I also have that, like, I have the gene passed down to my mom, to my older sister. I'm one of 5 girls. So one of my older sisters, and then to me.
Yeah.
Okay. That is also connected to the gift, the spiritual gift.
Okay.
Because I also think that the spiritual gift is also what has protected our family. Yeah. From, colonization and rape and all the horrors that have happened in the Philippines. And so it's connected, this like strong gift and this strong independent. And my other sister, who hasn't inherited this gene, is like, yeah, I don't know how you do it, because it's also really scary, because that it's a very big walls that are put up, and people, like, it's like really hard to be in relationship with people, my family line, that have inherited this gene, you know. And so I know for me, whereas some of my sisters most of my sisters are not kind of requiring this, for me, I really require a lifelong journey of therapy and coaching and healing. So I'm never, I can say never, I don't know the last time I was without either a therapist, coach, and a healer, or all 3, or sometimes I have 5 at the same time. It is like it's essential for me, because of the trauma, kind of the baseline trauma that's in me, that I'm healing, that it's been placed in me for me to help heal.
And how beautiful, though, that you allow yourself to have that support system as a non-negotiable. right? So many people struggle with asking for help and asking for support. And is it okay? And what are people going to think? And you're just like, hell no, I need this. I don't want this. This is not a nice to have. Like, I need this. Like, I think that's amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen what happens when you don't have it, and bless the heart of my Lula and my sister, my mom, but it can be really hard to not have that support.
Yeah.
And another layer is I'm so privileged, you know. My Lula didn't have access to mental health. You know, my mom raised 5 of us on her own after being in and out of different abusive relationships. So she didn't have access in the same, like in her mind, she didn't have access to it. You know what I mean? And so yes, thank you for that. And like it's really coming from a place of privilege that now that I can use. I mean, that is what I spend my money on. I don't really buy new clothes. I don't, you know, like it's my therapy and coaching that I spend a lot of money on. Like my car is not an updated car. Like it is like, you know, but this is where I spend my money on. And so I'm privileged to be in that place, to have one, the choice to do it, and 2, the awareness that I can and that it's okay. And more than okay, you know.
More than okay.
Yeah.
And that leads us beautifully into the next question, which I'm very curious about, is how has this journey to self-love and beyond, how has this impacted your journey to entrepreneurship? You've talked a little bit about what you do, you've hinted at a little bit, but tell us about how those 2 journeys are connected. And then please tell us about your work and what it looks like today.
Sure. No, thanks for asking. I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm like, it's 100% connected.
No, it's good. It's good.
No, but I'm just laughing at myself. Like they're all good, but it really is. It's all connected. You know, it was for the end of that engagement is what like I said, I was crying to spirit. I was crying all the time. I, you know, called out all my ancestors. And I had always said, and I would actually say this out loud, and it kind of makes me laugh to think that this was like a mantra, essentially, that I would say, which was that, like, I like to learn the hard way. Like, I would legit be like, whatever, I like to learn the hard way. That is how I learn. I'll learn when I need to learn. Like, that's really what was my energy. Well, Katie, I was learning the hard way. I was in so much pain. Not just from the end of the engagement, but also I was mourning the possibility of not having a child. And I felt like I wanted to have a child in partnership, like in that moment. And then I was mourning like my reputation, my ego, all of that stuff. Right. And so I became suicidal, like suicidal ideation. So I was thinking about it, but I was too scared. This is my whole thought. I was like, I can't think of a way that I can kill myself for sure, and it would be painless, and I wouldn't be left. Like, my bigger fear was to be left paralyzed because I tried to kill myself and didn't succeed, and then I wouldn't be able to kill myself. Like, this was my thought process. Right. And so I would pray. I was like, okay, God, you can do it. You could just not wake me up.
Right.
Why don't you just not wake me up? There are so many other people that want to be woken up. Just don't wake me up. Just wait. You know what I mean? Like, I was like trying to bargain, right?
Yeah.
I would pray and pray and pray, and I kept getting woken up. So finally, I got pissed. Here I am. This is my ego-filled self getting pissed at God. Who am I to get pissed? But I'm like, why do you keep waking me up? I already told you I have nothing left to give. There's just no point. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And then I heard from a voice beyond me, you know, something that I would never say. And it said, I'm not done using you. I can get emotional just thinking about it even today, because I in that moment, I realized that there must be more in me. God wasn't done using me. I felt like I had nothing. I was worthless. You know? And so God said, I'm not done using you. That's really when I was like, oh wow. And I just bawled out in tears and said, okay, God, well then you show me.
Yeah.
God, show me how to do this in a way that's not so hard.
Yeah.
How to live, without wanting to die,
Yeah.
And that prayer, God answers prayers, spirit, creator, whatever you call that, higher power answers prayers so fast, when we're open to listening. And that prayer that day led me to my coach. Like that day led me
Yeah.
to my coach. And so, having been like a past therapist and counselor, I used to be super, super active, and I was doing CrossFit, all these, I was running all the time. I was doing all this stuff to heal. It really wasn't until I had my coach. And all those things were helpful, but for me, it wasn't until I had my coach that was transformational.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's what was like when I was like, oh my gosh, this I didn't even know about. And it's just like kind of connects everything. It connects mental health, it connects spirituality, it connects my gift. And this is what I'm being called to do. Like I said, I'd already got the call before, but I was too scared, so I didn't listen.
Yeah.
But this experience pushed me to do it. And then I jumped in full time, and God is good. Spirit's been taking care of me, ancestors have been taking care of me. And that's essentially what I support other women of color in doing is like, it is so hard because I know I'm not the only one. I know because I'm also serving others, but it's like that trauma response can be inherited, and this idea of like being able to go beyond the trauma response, go beyond survival, into your best thing, like writing that book, becoming a best-selling author, which some of my clients have done, starting being on the news and, having these just like amazing, powerful businesses, or finding the love of your life, or getting as fit as you've ever been, like all of those things, whatever it is that your dream is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like spirit will show you the way. And so what I essentially do is I help my clients and our clients. Now we have a team. There's like a team of 8 of us now, which I'm so grateful to have the whole company. I'm like, oh my God, God is so good. Which makes it's a whole nother conversation because I had no idea how to run a business when I first started. But spirit put people in my path that showed me the way.
Right.
And so essentially that's what we are for others. It's like, and I say we because it's not just me coaching anymore, but like, Surrendered Healing, that's what we're doing is we're supporting other women of color, and specifically women of color, because there's just the starting point for women of color I have found is just a different place. And so I want to be able to meet them where they are, and then bring them through their journey, and so helping them to see like, hey, that calling that you got, you weren't tripping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, that trauma response that you had, you could rewire it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can go beyond it. Hey, that dream that you thought about when you were a kid, you could have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. Oh, I love that so much. And how amazing now that you have a team of 8. Sorry, I just want to, you just like glossed over that like so quickly. But for so many people starting businesses, it's like at first the dream is just like, I just want to make money doing what I love. And now you've gotten to a point where there are 8 of you and all of you are working together. I am sure that each of you brings something different to the table and you all have your own strengths and like, holy powerhouse. Like that's amazing. Like, well done.
No, spirit.
Holy.
Thank you. No, thank you for that. And then the number one thing for me that spirit continues to remind me is that like what I'm doing well is that I'm listening.
Yeah.
Everything else I'm not really doing. Spirit is sending. Spirit is like, oh, you think you're finding your clients? No. I'm sending them your way, but you're picking up the phone. You're talking to the people I'm guiding you to talk to. And so that's the other thing is like the gift that I shared earlier. I'm supporting our clients. We're supporting our clients in tapping into their gifts.
Yeah.
So that they're like, they're like, oh my God, this crazy thing happened. I was, you know what I mean? I was doing this. And then that exact vision that I had came forth. And it's essentially manifestation, but on this like deep intuitive level. And then connecting back to their roots, their wherever their ancestors are from. And so it's just like this, like I said, it's all connected 100% on everything.
Yeah. It's all connected. Yeah. I get that.
Yes.
I get that. Yeah.
Yes.
So Adelina, if there's somebody listening who is like maybe where you used to be years ago, maybe has a gift and is in denial about it or afraid of it, maybe feeling really awful about themselves, maybe they recognize they have walls up, they don't really know what to do, but they want to do something. Is there a practice or an exercise or a tool or something that you would recommend for them to start with?
Yes. So I cannot stress enough. I mean, I've shared several times here how many different support like I have. And like I said, I have a lot of attitudes. So I've gone to God before and be like, why can't I do this on my own? Why can't it just be me and you? Why do I have to pay a third party hella money? And the response that I got is that Spirit created us to be in relationship. And that it's actually in relationship that we can be our best selves, because we get to mirror each other. I mean, Spirit didn't get to go into all those details, but I understood there was just this mirroring experience and all that, and so because I've sat with, I just want to go on the top of the hill by myself and just God and just pray and that's it, but Spirit's like, no, honey, that's not, or really no child, I think is how God talks to me, but like, that's not going to work for you.
Right.
And so what I always recommend to folks, the number one thing is like, find your people, sometimes finding your therapist or finding your coach is like finding your significant other. Like you might find a coach and be like, oh, that was not it. Don't judge all coaching from this one bad experience. Or you might, have tried out therapy before and it didn't work out. Well, try again. It's like saying, oh, I dated someone. Oh, I tried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep trying till you find, one of my clients said she was creating, and I was so honored to be a part of it. She was like, I'm creating my wellness team.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, create your team, right? We're not put on earth to do it by ourselves.
Right.
So the number one thing I would say is find your people, and as a healer myself and, a vessel of healing, the work is to always have, it's like you're climbing a ladder, and somebody's pulling you up and then you're also looking back and pulling someone else up, you know what I mean? And so it's like, you want to have, and then as you're kind of doing this and you have like Spirit holding you and then you have your ancestors holding you on this ladder because you're not holding anything, right? So that said, know that you're not alone. Like you couldn't be alone even if you wanted to. Like you have your ancestors that you're aware of, right? Like maybe you knew some of your ancestors who are now passed. You have your living ancestors, and then you have generations of ancestors that love you even though you don't know their name. And so to just know that you're not alone. I think so often, especially in today's society, we feel alone. And to know that you're not alone, and you couldn't be, like you actually physically cannot be alone. Like there's no way. Like keep trying. You can do it. Not alone.
Right. I love that. Yeah. That, like, I think there is an epidemic of people feeling lonely, people feeling like they are alone, like there's nobody there for them. And just, I mean, that message, if nothing else, like that is a powerful message right there, right? Like you are not alone. You couldn't be if you tried, period. End of story. Yeah. Yeah. You have a free gift and offering for everybody. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? I'm just conscious of the time. We need to wrap up.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that though.
Yes. And so, so much has been given to me. I mean, I share like what privileged place that I'm in, especially in my family line. And so it's important to me to be able to give back. And so in spaces like this, when we're talking about self-love, you know what I mean? Where we're like really going beyond and about healing, it's important for me to be able to give back. And so we do have 90-minute sessions. 90 minutes is a long time. So just feel the love in that.
Yeah.
90 minutes. It's called the Design Your Dream session. It's where we get really clear on, what's in your way, what are the challenges that you're currently going through, and then supporting you and tapping into your gift to hear what your calling is that much more clearly, and then helping you source with Spirit what you feel called to do next, like as your next step. Like I'm big on next steps. That's a little bit more my social work background. Like I'm not going to be like, here's this powerful session and then peace out. It's like, okay, well, what's like a plan for you, and we're going to help you find an intuitive answer to that question.
Yeah.
And so that session, 90-minute call, or Zoom call these days, it's valued at $500. There is an application process. We do give out like a couple of them for free a month, that you go through an application. But for those of you who are listening to this podcast, if you just write in there that you heard about it from the Self-Love Ignited podcast, you'll bypass the application and go right into an acceptance for the call. So that's my gift. And I just, of course. And sometimes folks are like, oh my God, there's only a couple of free ones. I don't want to take up the space. Take up the space.
Yes.
It's yours to take. If you feel called, if you feel called to receive in this way,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Then it's a gift. It's a gift for you. Your name is already written on it. And so that is on, and you can find that on surrenderedhealing.com/community offerings.
Okay.
And so if you go to the Design Your Dream session application there, and again, just write that you heard about this gift on the Self-Love Ignited podcast.
Thank you for that. That is so generous of you. And I want to mirror what you just said. If somebody is listening to this, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't really want to take that space, but there's something in you, you're getting a little like an itch or a nudge or like a little ping in your brain that's like, that is the thing for me, then like, take it. It is being offered to you on a silver platter. This is not something I don't think that you guys do all the time, right? You're not just always just offering them out everywhere. Like they are a couple here and there. But if you're listening and you want it, please take it, because these gifts, like that sounds like a life-changing 90 minutes. Holy, that sounds incredible. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Adelina, is there anything else? You have shared so much with us so far. This has been an incredible conversation. Is there any last bits that you want to share? Any little pieces of wisdom, anything else that is on your heart, on your mind that you are being guided to share with us before we wrap up?
Oh, thank you for asking that. What came to mind is one of my clients who I served years ago, her message to me, like after it was like a very short-term experience, it was like 3 months or something. And she was like, I would never have thought that a non-Muslim would bring me closer to my religion. You know what I mean? And I share that because it brought tears to my eyes when I read her message. She had like emailed it to me just as like an extra thank you. And I share that because it is my dream come true to support folks in getting closer to their version of their higher power. And so if I could leave anybody with any thought, it's just that I know we talked a lot about ancestors and talked about gifts and we talked about self-love, but to know that there is an all giving and all understanding and all forgiving power and personal mind, like a one mind, a personal mind, whatever you call that, looking out for you specifically. Like not like, oh, the universe is like, yes, the universe is looking out for you, but like there's a mind specifically with like having your intention, like what is the best intention for you, in their heart. And so to just know, just to know that, I think it's been a journey for me to know that intimately. And that's what I felt guided to share, is that there is a one mind looking out for you specifically and has your best interest at heart. So you don't have to worry about figuring it all out, because there is a one mind that already figured it out, right? You just have to worry about what you're being called to do next, your next right step.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you on a personal level. This has been healing for me, honestly. Just to have this conversation. I think we are always, like you said at the beginning, people are brought together, people are guided to have conversations. Sometimes we don't know why. It's not up for us to know why, but I think we all benefit in some way. And I know I've definitely benefited from speaking to you today. And I hope that everybody listening benefits in whatever way they are meant to at this time. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing yourself and your story. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, right back at you. It's so reciprocal. You have no idea. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.